Hari Om. Start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanora Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are doing chapter 1 and we are doing actually the sloka 52, which we will complete now and go to 53. Let's chant sloka 52, which I consider a very important sloka. Vikalpatad abhavabhyam asamsrushtatma vastuni vikalpatatva sambandhadyastu kalpitaah. So vikalpatad abhavabhyam as samsrushtada atmani, in the pure self, and either the vikalpada means all the modifications, attributes, karma, kriya, guna, jati that were listed in the Nyaya, and tad abhavabhyam, and their absence of that also is asamsrushta atmani. So it is untouched by any of this. So essentially, because we discussed, it is ontologically, the Brahman is different order of reality compared to the world. So world may go through all sorts of things. There may be good things and the bad things, and it is untouched by it. So just like from the physics point, say everything is nothing but made of the electrons, photons and neutrons, but the garbage is stinking, and whereas the delicious food will be smelling beautifully, but these do not affect the electrons, photons, neutrons, and it's only our external packaging only, and from the point of electrons, photons, they are independent of or unaffected by the presence or absence of the smells and tastes and all that. So sabda, sparsa, rupa, rasa, gandha, all those things have nothing to do with the pure electron, protons and neutrons. Only the packaging, different types of packaging, you get different varieties of that. So packaging the same way, Brahman being the material cause, it appears to be many, and the packaging is made up of the Panchabhutas, the subtle and the after Panchikarana, the gross material, and all the packaging is different, and that will not be affecting the original, because it is ontologically it is of different order. It is a cause and is an apparent effect. So it is not a real transformation, it is only apparent transformation. Just we said the gold appeared to be many ornaments without affecting gold. So rings and the bangles and the necklaces and all that, their properties and their sufferings and their date of birth or their deaths, etc., will not affect the gold. Gold it was, gold it is, and gold it will be. Ornaments come and go and so on. So this is called a vivarta transformation, a transformation involving only an apparent transformation. That's called vivarta transformation. There is a parinama transformation, where the destructive transformation we said about the ring becoming into a bangle. So there is a destruction of a ring form to become into a gold, becoming into a bangle, and in the process gold remains the same, it remains unchanged, where only name and a form. Form changes, therefore name changes. So therefore in the same way, the Brahman is unaffected by any of this. That's what Krishna also says, declares in the, we said, Mahat adamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina mastani sarva bhutani nachaham tesha avastitaha nachaham tesha avastitaha. I am unaffected, they are all in me. So, Mastani Sarva Bhutana, all beings are in me, and all elements are in me, both subtle as well as gross. But their modifications and all that will not affect me. And their states of matter, in terms of whatever they undergo, samsara, will not affect me. And in the next sloka he says, Najabastani Bhutani. From really, if you want to really ask, there are no really beings in me, because I am pure Satchidananda Swarupam. So from the Brahman point, there is no creation even. But from the Brahman point, we don't need to talk about it. It's only we are talking about those who are feeling the samsara. He wants to know how to evolve. And for him, his first evolution is to transcend this, the notion of samsara. And that's what is to be done. And vikalpa tattva lakshyatvam sambandha jastu kalpitaha. So all are kalpana. Kalpana means imaginations. It's only not real, but appears to be real. And for the one who is going through, it is really real. Just like in the dream world. Dream world, I'm running away from saving myself from the tiger, but really, I created myself there, I created the tiger, I created the forest. At the same time, I forgot that I created, and I am trying to save the tiger from the tiger that I own created. And this is the kalpana. Kalpana is done at the same time. I forget that it is a kalpana. Where the samsara comes is not in kalpana, but forgetting the notion that it is, forgetting the fact that it is kalpana. And therefore, the Vedanta Shravana is required to recognize this fact only. And that's what is essentially being done here. And some more aspects of it is also here vikalpa tad abhavabhyam. Vikalpa also a thoughts or thought modifications, and abhavabhyam, the absence of that also is nothing to do with, untouched by me. So here we have to say what exactly involves in meditation. People say you have to go beyond the thoughts. So what exactly beyond the thoughts? So you should stop thinking. So if you start thinking, what happens? Nothing happens. An ignorant person who was thinking before, now an ignorant person who stopped thinking before. No knowledge will take place by that process. Knowledge can only take place with the mind through the thought process only. But the knowledge that one gains is pointing in the lakshyate, pointing in the direction which transcends that. So that has to be understood. So non-duality, Advaita, which is Advaita is translated as non-duality. So non-duality is not the absence of duality. So it's not the removing of a duality will make Advaita. It's not removal of the duality, it is non-duality in spite of duality. Whether duality present, that's what vikalpa tad abhavabhyam. Whether duality present or absent. Whether I am a thinker and this is a thought is present, or whether I am a thinker and this is a thought is absent, both are vikalpa within the same only. But what I am is beyond that. I am untouched by it. So what should I do for meditation? So meditation is not absence of the thought. Meditation is not a removal of the thoughts. It is recognition that I am the one that illumines the thought also. As I said, looking at my hand, you're looking at the thought also in the same way. So you need a hand to see the light. Same way, I need a thought to recognize the light of consciousness that illumine. So when I remove the hand, then I cannot recognize it. So I use the thought, very thought itself, but at the same time I have to shift my attention from the hand to the light that really, because of which I can see. So eyes cannot see that light without reflection. So if I remove the hand, you cannot see the light where the hand is. So I need the hand. At the same time, I have to shift my attention to the light than to the hand. It's not the hand, because of which hand is seen. Yat chachusha na pasyati, yena chachumsi pasyati. That which eyes cannot see, but because of which eyes can see. That is the light of consciousness. In the same way, I have to use the thought, But instead of many thoughts running around, for me to shift my attention from the thought to the light of consciousness that is illumining the thought, I need to have only one or two thoughts so that I can shift back, concentrate and meditate on that, because of which I can see the thought. And the theory of japa is exactly this. Japa is, instead of thinking many other things, I have the same thought and the same thought and the same thought, so that I don't get carried away with the contents of the thought. I know it's the same repetition, but now I can shift, because I am providing a thing that for me to reflect, to contemplate on, and now shift, because of which I can be conscious of the japa thought also. So I can stand apart without getting carried away from one thought to the other thought, like a monkey jumping from one tree to other tree to so on. Same way, I jump from one thought to other thought. That's what happens during the normal process of thinking, and I don't get down. So there is no space. So whereas in the japa, it says Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. So I'm giving a gap between two thoughts, and in the gap, what is there? What is there is silence from the thoughts, but I am there and silence is there. So silence is not a meditation. Silence is, you have to be silent in order to meditate. Silence is not. Silence is also an object, because I know the silence. If I know the silence, that is an object of my meditation. So going to silence is not the necessary. Going to silence helpful, provided I have the background knowledge that I am observing the silence, I am an observer, conscious entity. Silence is inert entity only. So it's not the mind, either the mind in absent or present, it is looking at the object. By the way, mind cannot be absent. Mind may get folded as in the deep sleep state, but nothing happens in the deep sleep state. Nothing happens because there is no pramata, there is a knower to know that I am beyond this, is not there. So realization can come only in the waking state, where I can use the viveka, discriminative intellect, to differentiate what is real and what is not real. And even the samadhi that he is going to talk about more and more, will analyze, is also a thought is provided, where the thought is about the Atma itself. We'll come to that when we discuss that sloka. So mind cannot but think, but what is that? Absence of the mind cannot be possible. Absence of the mind is only absence of all unnecessary thoughts and contemplating on that. That is the only way self-realization can occur. And this is what essentially has to be recognized from this sloka. Now we go to the next sloka. With that, the Mananam part that was raised by the Nayayikas, first he stopped the Nayayikas, then still analyzed the problem that he has raised as an objection and provided Siddhanta. The objection was that if there is an attribute for the Brahman, then Brahman becomes a mithya vastu, like any other object. If it doesn't have an attribute, then you cannot teach about it, because anything that is teaches is an objectifiable entity only. So whole Vedanta, your Advaita Vedanta falls down. That was his comment. But while using a dialectic argument to shut him off, but at the same time the question has to be answered, and his answer is that Brahman is unaffected by the presence or absence of even knowledge also. So ignorance, who has ignorance? Locus of ignorance. There's a big discussion in the Sri Bhashya of Bhagavan Ramanuja. He spends so much time on negating the Advaita Vedanta, and he takes the 7 untenables against the avidya of Advaita Vedanta. Very interesting. Just we have to know what are the objections and what are the correct answers also. So the objection is, one of the avidya is, so who has the avidya? Locus of the avidya. Does the Brahman have an avidya, or Jiva has an avidya? Avidya means ignorance. Who is ignorant? Is Brahman is ignorant, or ignorance is a what? About his own self. So is Brahman ignorant, or the Jiva is ignorant? But from the fundamentals of Advaita Vedanta, from Brahman point, there is no ignorance. Because Brahman is Ekameva Advitiyam, one without a second. And there is no need to discuss about Brahman also, and you cannot discuss about Brahman also. Because one Navak Gatsati, Namanaha, and the Yato Vacho Nivartante Aprapya Manasa Saha. So scripture says you cannot even talk about it. So from Brahman point, it is pure Ekameva Advitiyam Brahma, it's pure existent, Akhanda, Anandam. That, from that point, there is no ignorance also. Then who is ignorant? And where is the locus? So when we say that Brahman is not the locus of ignorance, then Brahman should, somewhere else is the locus of the ignorance. If somewhere else is the locus of the ignorance, the Brahman cannot be Brahman. Why? Brahman means it cannot exclude anything. Brahman is being infinite, it cannot exclude anything. Therefore, locus of ignorance is also Brahman. At the same time, Brahman doesn't have ignorance. How can this is a contradiction? It's not a contradiction. That's why we are talking about either abhava, presence or absence of knowledge. Absence of knowledge is ignorance, does not affect the Atmani, because it's ontologically is of the different order of reality. That has to be understood. So first statement is there is no ignorance in Brahman. The second level is, since you are talking about Brahman, now we are coming to a transactional level. At that level, yes, Brahman is the locus of the avidya, but at the same time, Brahman is asangaha, unaffected by it. So the ignorance is also Brahman. Ignorance, knowledge, everything is in Brahman only, because there cannot be anything other than Brahman. Therefore, everything has to be in Brahman only. So that has to be understood. At the same time, who has the avidya? We went through that avidya is Jiva, having the Jiva, because I don't know that I am Brahman. So the one who doesn't know that he is Brahman has having avidya. It's a simple statement, because he doesn't know. If he knows that, he doesn't have any more ignorance. So ignorance is locused on the Jiva, and therefore, in the sense that I am ignorant. So where Ramanuja asks, if it is the Jiva has an ignorance, the question is Jiva born of ignorance, or ignorance is born after Jiva is born? If ignorance is because Jiva has ignorance, means Jiva should be there before. In that case, Jiva must be already knowledgeable, because ignorance came after Jiva came. Or if you say ignorance came before, then how can who has ignorance? Because Jiva was not there. So Jiva, if you say Jiva is has ignorance, then there is a problem, because which came first? This is the same question. Which came? Jiva came first, or avidya came first? So this is the what do you call the seed and the tree? If the tree came first or the seed came first? So which came first? If you say tree came first, how can it come? Tree come because you need a seed. If you say the seed came first, how can the seed come? Because the seed has to come from the tree only. So this becomes a endless cycle, and therefore all we can say is it is beginningless. That's why Vedanta says it's a beginningless. There is no beginning for it. You can keep on asking. There is no beginning, because it is anadi, beginningless itself. So avidya is anadi. So Jiva is also anadi. Say, how can it be anadi? Here say, but Bhagavan Ramanuja cannot ask that question, because he accepts even in his Siddhanta that karma is the cause for creation, and karma is what? Well, karma is anadi. Who is karta and who is karma? Karta has to be there before karma. Karma is already there for karta to be born. So he has the same problem, because he also has to resort that creation is beginningless, ignorance is beginningless. Even in his case also ignorance is there, but his ignorance he defines separately as ignorance of I am a amsha of the Lord. He forgets that. He thinks he is swadantram. He is independent, and he doesn't recognize that he is depend on the Lord. That's what his ignorance is, according to Ramanuja. So the question was being raised in terms of the ignorance itself. With that, we go to the next sloka 53. Ittam vakyaistadadarthanu Ittam vakyaisthadarthanu sandhanam sravanam bhave Sandhanam Sravanam Bhave Yuktya Sambhavitatvanum Yuktya Sambhavitatvanum Sandhanam Mananantu Tat Sandhanam Mananantu Tat. Together, Ittam Vakyaisthadarthanu Sandhanam Sravanam Bhave. Let's stop. Actually, Ittam Vakyaihi Tad Artha Anusandhanam. Because we are for 88-fold we are splitting there. Yuktya Sambhavitatvanum Sandhanam Mananantutat. Also second line also Yuktya Sambhavitatva Anusandhanam Mananantutat. So Ittam, so now he is summarizing what has been done so far. Vidyaranya summarizing Ittam. So in this way, in what way? We have to go through the process of Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Sravana is the Tattvamasi statement and Tattvamasi is Lakshartha, not Vachyartha. Vachyartha is word meaning. Word meaning doesn't give the equation properly because I am that, I am localized guy, that is infinite. How can you equate both? So Jiva cannot be equated to Ishvara, and therefore I had to remove do Bhagatyaga Lakshanam, that means removing contradictory qualifications of I am and the Jiva and the Ishvara, only equate the essence, and the essence is I am existing and I am conscious. Lord also, I am existing and I am conscious, and that part is only equated. So even in the Bible also, in the on the Sermon on the Mount, it says, not Sermon on the Mount, on the when the Moses goes and asks, who are you? What should I say who are? He says, I am that I am, because he cannot say anything else. So any that is qualification, I am pure existent consciousness that I am. So that is the clear Tattvamasi statement. So Ittam Vakyaihi. So in this way, the Vakyas, the Tat Artha Anusandhanam. So the clear understanding of that, and in proper understanding, and Anusandhanam Sravanam, and that is from the teacher to this one, the constant listening to the scriptures. Even Tattvamasi statement occurs 9 times in the Chandogya Upanishad, where Uddalaka, the teacher who is a father, and teaching his son Swetaketu, and he repeats that, but each time he repeats, he provides an example clarifying it, why you are that. So that requires continuously a mananam, Sravanam has to be done, so that no more the knowledge is clear, and that's what is the Sravanam is. Yuktya Sambhavitatvanusandhanam Mananantu Tatu. So Sravanam is listening to the teacher for a prolonged length of time under a competent teacher until no more misunderstandings are there. So that is essentially what Shravanam is, not just one day listening, because we have wrong notions about ourselves, about the world, and about the Ishvara. So the more we are educated in this, more confusion we are getting into, and therefore more. If you have a full faith, then it's easy for the teacher to, because he has a faith that the teacher is right. That's what happened to Bhagavan Nisargadatta Maharaj. He is a pan bidi wala. He doesn't have too much of confused state of knowing too many books, and he has a full faith that the teacher says you are that, and that's sufficient for him, and within 3 years he came back with the knowledge established in that. So whereas we'll take whole life pattern itself, because we have studied so much and logic and all that, because of that we get confused more and more. We raise all sorts of questions also, and that's because we do not have faith in the scriptural statement, you are that. If scripture says, then it must be true. So I had to drop everything else. I am not this, I am not this, 1880, and recognize what is that I am. That has to be done. For that you need a Shraddha. Shraddha, Shankaracharya defines as Shastrasya, Guru Vakyasya, Satya Buddhyavadharana Sa Shraddha. What is Shraddha? It is the listening to the scriptures are right, and interpretation of the scriptures, communication of the teacher is indeed correct, and that is indeed what is. So scripture comes first and then the teacher comes there. So teacher, right teacher is the one who points to scriptural statement as the pramana, not to himself as I am able to realize, so follow me. No. We follow, say I am able to realize, and this is what scripture says realization means, and therefore follow the same step, and that's how I also able to recognize because of that. Therefore Shastasya Guru Vakyasya. So your scripture itself says, go to a teacher who is Shastraha and then Brahmanishta. So Triyam Brahmanishtam. So Ittam Vakyaihi to tad arthanusandhanam shravanam bhave. That is called shravanam. So what is the definition of srotavyaha, mantavyaha, nisidhyasitavyaha? Yajnavalkya teaches to Maitri, his wife, that one has to listen to the scriptures. What is listening? Listening is a consistent, systematic study of scriptures under a competent teacher. And a competent teacher is one who himself studied systematically, consistently under another competent teacher, all the way to the Lord. So therefore, this follows a methodology of teaching is also involved. Consistent teaching involves a methodology of teaching, because all our possibilities of questions and confusions have been looked into and analyzed systematically, and therefore it's a prolonged length of time is required so that the understanding is clear. In most of the cases, you have to listen to the scriptures. You are not allowed to ask the question, because most of the questions get clarified as you listen more and more and more. That is the nature of the teaching here. So, ittam vakyaista tadarthanusandhanam shravanam bhave. That's called shravanam. Yuktya sambhavitatva anusandhanam mananantu tatu. So, yuktya, by using logic, I'd say, so even though the logic itself does not, I cannot discover the truth. So it says, Naisha tarkena matinapaneya, in the Kathopanishad it says, by logically I cannot deduce. Why logically I cannot deduce? Logic, because the conventional logic depends, are called Anumana Pramana, is Durbala Pramana, is weak Pramana, weak knowledge, means of knowledge, because it rests on Pratyaksha Pramana for validation. So you give a logic, even in science also, the logic is Durbalam, is weaker, because it depends on the data, on the experimental data. That's called Pratyaksha Pramanam. So I may have a theory is deduced, but there is no experimental support, nobody will buy it. So experimental support validates the theory. So drishtantam, drishtantam means the perceptual data validates the logic. But here, if logic itself I want to use the absolute pratyaksha pramana cannot validate it, therefore that is not I can logically deduce. So Tarkikas logically deduced and came up with a different theory. So therefore logic itself does not help in terms of discovering the truth. But that doesn't mean that Shastra is illogical. So we can talk about Shastra, and Shastra, there is a logic involved, it's not illogical. Illogical is happiness comes from my own self, that's what Shastra says. And that's not illogical, that's a fact also. But I'm going still after objects for my happiness. When I know that happiness is coming from my own self, there is no happy in the coffee or happiness in anywhere. At the same time, I'm running after it. That means there is a confusion and not clear understanding that happiness comes from my own self. So therefore, logically one can through the Shastra Pramana, it's called essentially Shastra Anumana Pramana. So logically one has to be, and this is what the Mananam is. Yuktya Sambhavitat Anusandhanam. So by means of essentially the inference and the analysis, one can analyze this and contemplate on it, so that there is no doubts arising, because the doubting mind cannot discover the truth. So there should not be any doubt, crystal clear, even when you encounter a Advaitin trying to argue and says all that is not really correct. So you have a Satadhushani in the Visishtadvaita and the Nayamrutam in the Dvaita, and Satadhushani in the Visishtadvaita, criticizing the Advaita, all based on the logic only, all based on the dialectic arguments only. If you read on the Ananda and the Advaita Siddhi, Madhusudana Saraswati addressed all that in the Nyayamrutam and clarified, because until then people thought that so confused that the logic is so confusing that everybody thought the Advaita cannot answer it, until the Madhusudana Saraswati came and Advaita Siddhi's response to the arguments of the Advaitins. Of course, the Advaitins will say that, oh, the Advaita Siddhi doesn't answer those questions, so they can keep on. That's okay. So our point is that it's not the logic, it's the understanding of, logically I cannot deduce, but at the same time I need a logic for a crystal clear understanding of what scripture is pointing out. With that, he is summarizing the Sravanam and Mananam. Now we have to go to the Nididhyasanam. So what is Nididhyasanam? Tabhyam nirvichikitsa Tabhyam nirvichikitserte chetasastapitasya yat chikitse arthe. So Tabhyam nirvichikitsate chetasastapitasya yat ekata-natvametadhi nididhyasanamuchyate. So it's defining what is nididhyasanam. So srotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. Nididhyasanam is meditation. So what is to be meditated upon? So people think that meditation is how you realize. So meditation is not meant for realization. Meditation is not meant for knowledge also. So meditation is not a pramana. So I mean, so now Vedanta is all intellectual, and all you need is Tattvamasi, and you now know what you are that. Now you have to meditate on that. That's what people think, but that's not what essentially Nididhyasanam implies. So meditation on what? What are you going to meditate on? Meditate on the learning that you have done. About the Lakshartham that being discussed, you meditate along the scriptural statements to see the truth behind. That's what is essentially Tabhyam. So Tabhyam means this, of the two, that is of the Mananam and Sravanam. Tabhyam nirvichikitse arthe. So nirvichikitse means without any doubts about it. So without vichikitsa means completely analyzing, and there is no more doubts, and without having any doubts whatsoever. Means I have no crystal clear understanding is there. Arthe of the meaning of the Mahavakya, and takes place Chetasaha, the mind. Chetasaha Swamitasya yatu ekata-natvam. So have sthamita means establish. So the mind has to clearly get established in ekata-natvam, in the single pointed. Ekata means on single pointed. Say Ekatvatvam means single pointedness that is being pointed out in the scripture. That is, there is no duality. You are that. There is only one, and that ekanatvam. There is only one that is being pointed out, and single pointed flow of thoughts in the direction is etad nididhyasanam uchyate. So that is called nididhya. That is really meditation. So what meditation? And sit down, do Om or do something else or some other. That's not what meditation is, or not meditation on Ishtadevatas and so on. Those are required for Chitta Suddhi, Chitta Ekagrata and so on and so forth. That means single pointedness, and for purification they are helpful, but they are not helpful for the realization. So what's the realization? Requires a constant flow of thoughts in the direction that is being pointed out, the oneness that pervades the whole universe. So I had to think. That's what it is essentially. Ekatattva means single pointed thought. So thought and the thinker are there, and I am contemplating. So I am thinking on what? About the thoughts, but the thoughts are not any other thoughts, but concentrate in the direction. And that is Nididhyasanam. Tat he indeed is Nididhyasanam Uchyate. So there are several theories of what is Nididhyasanam. What I had to do in the Nididhyasanam? Constant reflection on the teaching is essence of is essentially Nididhyasanam. It's not that you have to sit down and do Nididhyasanam, but constant contemplation on the truth expounded by the Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, is what is Nididhyasanam. So there are degrees of the student capabilities that are called Adhikaram. Adhikaram means to what level I am qualified. So it's a qualification based on the purity of the mind. That's what qualification is, not the degrees and all that. It's based on the purity, and the impurities are nothing but the vasanas. So how far you have purified the vasanas. So to listen to the scriptures, you need some purity. Otherwise you will be restless in the class. So you may bring all your friends and all that to the Vedanta class, and you may enjoy it, but they become restless. They came because of, as a courtesy to you, as a courtesy to you, but they want to run away from it because it doesn't, because their mind is not tuned to the knowledge. So they become restless also. So what is required? Some purity is required even to listen to Vedanta for a prolonged length of time. So if I can sit down and sit in the, so some purity is required. How do you know I am pure? If you sit in the Vedanta class and able to concentrate on the teaching and start understanding the teaching itself, that means you have the required Shraddha in order to understand the truth. So that is essentially a minimum purity. So the one who is highest purified is Shravanam is in itself is enough. So by listening to that, you understand being pointed out, and immediately he looks at and realizes, and that's what happened in the Kenopanishad. When the teaching is going on to the students, some are so the Uttamadhikari, highly purified. So with the teaching itself, immediately grasps, he says, "Sir, thank you, goodbye," because he is able to find out the meaning of it. Whereas the Madhyamadhikari, "Sir, yes, I understand beautifully." So in the class you understand, yes, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, everything is crystal clear. But as soon as I go out of the class, same transactions and same ragadveshas and go on. So where is the problem? This is called Madhyamadhikari. I am able to listen because I am purified enough to listen to the scriptures, but I have not purified the mind. It's called essentially, I do not have the Shraddha, that much, that faith in the teaching itself. I had enough Shraddha to listen to the teaching, but I am not having enough Shraddha when it says that you are indeed that and you are not this. So any transaction is I am this identification, any ragadveshas. So whenever and I suffer inside during my transaction, it is a crystal clear that I have not understood that I am pure, because there are the remnant ragadveshas that need to be purified. So what should I do to remove those ragadveshas? The prominent one is karma yoga and all that, but I don't have to go to karma yoga. The very Nididhyasanam will help me to remove that. So Nididhyasanam is for Madhyamadhikari. Adhamadhikari, he won't even come for the class, so we don't need to discuss about that. So Nididhyasanam is recommended, is required for Madhyamadhikari according to some acharyas. With this we stop, we go into more details in the next sloka. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.